Are we not already? Are we not just doing one of those cold introductions where you like wobble a table? Ooh. Anyway.
Should we do a cheers?
You
we
ever
can
seen
do.
Good Mythical Morning?
No. Yes.
AI, let's
is that,
talk about it.
is that Rhett and Link?
Before it takes over the world, make sure to be kind to ChatGPT.
GTP, wow.
Oh, that reminds me. I had a colleague of mine who.
Sorry, before you carry on, do you want to introduce yourself?
I will. Who was deathly disliking of eating noises. So if I ever had lunch or drank a drink, I would make sure to mute myself. Anyway,
Interesting.
I'm Tom. I'm currently studying, just finishing up my master's in AI. And this is, I suppose, the first episode of Bot Talks.
Yes, it is. And do you want to introduce
Hello,
yourself?
I'm Releena, and everything Tom said. And I'm excited to be here. This was a surprise.
So, Releena,
I walked into their apartment today, and Richard went, "You are doing a podcast with
did
us."
not. I went, you can be part of said podcast if you choose.
I did not have much option, though.
I'm Richard, and I haven't got a clue about AI.
It's one of those shotguns. I was like, yeah, no, this is happening, and you're going to enjoy it, and hopefully we will.
Oh, yes, it was Tom who
I can't
said.
remember who it was. It was one of us.
Yeah,
it happened, and now you're here.
yeah. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think the intent is to talk about some of the broad topics of AI, maybe the broad topics of robotics and computer science, from quite a approachable perspective. So I thought a really good opportunity to talk about today was a paper published in 2017 called "When Will AI Exceed Human Performance? Evidence from AI Experts." And in that paper,
Who wrote the paper?
oh, that's
You've got to credit a person, Tom.
I should. I'll be honest. Like a good academic, I completely ignore who.
References.
The principal author was a person called Katja Grace.
Okay.
Obligatory apologies for pronunciation. That could be
Are
Katja. They are called Katja Grace.
No, but I'm saying, are they British? Are they?
It was published by actually in combination between Oxford University, AI Impact, and Yale University.
So it's a global thing.
Yeah. So what they did was they went
Cool.
to a very popular talk and asked all of the experts that were at that talk, as well as some undergraduates, what they expected the future of AI would be. And 2016 is when they collected the data, when they went to this exposition,
Mm-hmm.
was both simultaneously not very long ago and also long ago that things like ChatGPT, things like Midjourney did not exist. To kind of bring the picture, AlphaGo, the agent that famously beat Lee Sedol in Go, didn't exist yet for another year. We can talk about that a little bit later.
For somebody like me, who are these people?
How do you mean, who are these people?
I don't know any of the words you just said.
Oh, sure. So
you were just like, yeah, Lisa Go, something else, and I was just like,
sure. So I suppose to rewind on that, everybody I would hope has heard of chess.
oh yes, I've heard of chess.
Excellent. We have a
The
starting
board game, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I just spilled water on me, but carry on.
So I should know when this was, but do you know when Deep Blue beat
film?
Garry Kasparov?
Deep Blue is in the film with the
When
shark.
was it? We could check. We could
We
Google.
could check. So
I don't remember the exact year.
there's always been a bit of a history of measuring AI capabilities against popular games. So the first game that kind of was beaten, as it were, very publicly was chess. Garry Kasparov being arguably one of the best players of all times, until people like Magnus Carlsen's came along.
Mm-hmm. Deep Blue versus Garry Kasparov started on the 10th of February 1996, and it went on till 11th of May 1997. And I believe the entire experiment was for a year-long thing, probably. Yeah, that's when that happened.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, to my mind, it kind of went a bit quiet. There's different ages in AI. But the kind of subsequent breakthrough for games, I would argue, is things like Atari. So a company called, I think it was DeepMind, made an agent that could bait all of the Atari games with no supervision. And then afterwards, they kind of went on a bit of a rampage. The subsequent year, so in 2017-18, I think, they released an agent called AlphaGo. So Go is a very popular game in, I think, particularly China, with incredibly broad, what we would call decision space, which means that in any given turn, you have so many different options. If you pretend, say, you've got 50 different options, and I think it's more than that in Go, then if you look 2 turns in the future, then you've got 50 times 50. Or if you consider your opponents, you've got 50 times 50 times 50.
Exactly.
Which is already a monstrous amount of things to consider. So Go and AlphaGo was a really interesting experiment, I suppose, and proof of concept of how AIs and computer science can begin to deal with tasks that aren't fully describable. Anyway, back in 2016-17, it didn't yet exist. The people at this convention didn't know that was a research that was about to be solved. And I think if I scroll down, I mean, I don't want to misquote. I think they thought Go wasn't going to be solved for another 16 years, when the answer actually was no, give us 6 months, which I think is remarkable.
Would you then say AI and a full-blown AI revolution is closer to us than we think?
I think we're in the middle of it.
I was about to say, surely we're in it right now. You've got, because of the power of things like ChatGPT, it's like changed the entire landscape of just everything.
That's true. Yeah.
Like,
But how far do you think it has the potential to go in the next 2-3 years?
I was naive in thinking that AI couldn't possibly take over things like creative spaces and things, but...
Well, that's the funniest thing, surely, is that that's where it's taking over first.
Yeah, that's where
Yes.
Well, besides, like, retail work and things, in the sense of, like, automation, it's...
Yeah. Automation existed long back
Yes,
as well.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
it surprises me how quickly all of a sudden AI's in the creative space.
Yeah.
but also when AI was just automation and it was just, the boring stuff like development or software, people did not pay much attention to it because it was not so accessible or understandable by the common people. I think creativity is much more accessible to the common mass, right? Like ChatGPT is something that a common person would use and not something probably that is just accessible to a developer, which is what makes it go viral, or which is what makes it create such a huge fuss around it. Also because it totally deserves the fuss, because this is something that just changes the entire landscape that AI was based on. AI is no longer boring. It is no longer something that software engineers do or developers do. It is something that is very much in front of everything right now. You ask ChatGPT a question or Bard a question, and you get an instant answer. It can understand your sentiments, and it can understand your context, which is actually quite difficult to do in NLP. And it does it so well. And it's brilliant that it has happened so fast and so quick, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't remember who I was speaking to, but they were saying that in their industry, AI, I think specifically ChatGPT, is being used in every single tier of the business. So it's being used in recruitment, it's being used in engineering, it's being used in sales and marketing, it's even being used in direction. Like, everybody is using it because where in the past people would have used Google and started to form some of their opinions by using Google, it allows people to do an hour's worth of Googling in 10 seconds.
Yes.
And more than that, I think, and this is where you're saying with the NLP.
Sorry, carry on.
Sure. More than that, it allows them to have a specific answer. Because if you look at search engines in the past, they're incredible at finding generic answers that are good for everybody, but that you then have to work out what it means for you. And ChatGPT gives you the answer for you.
Oh yeah, no, ChatGPT has carried my business on the back of its. Just yeah.
Can you imagine the number of businesses that just this one app can power?
Oh, 100%.
I mean, it can automate so many aspects, but I think one thing that bothers me a little bit is the accuracy, because you could never trust ChatGPT with all the things that people do trust it with, like creating a thought leadership article, for example, or writing novel code, for example, that we sort of think that ChatGPT, oh, okay, fine, we'll give it a prompt and it'll spit something out. But often it's very important to understand its capabilities before you trust it with a task.
Right.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about ChatGPT and that in general, I'll say within my kind of work, is you can ask it to be like, hi, can you give me a script outline? And it will automate that process. And you could just use that script outline as your script. You shouldn't, but you could. And then you have to go through that script to make sure everything it's telling you is correct. So, for example, let's say you're making a documentary and you want it to write a script and say, why tigers are the way they are. It might misunderstand tigers and give me something to do with a lion. Like, it does do that.
But I think one interesting thing that you just said was, you said you shouldn't get a script outline from ChatGPT. My question to you would be, why shouldn't you? It is a tool that is built to help you
I mean,
make
like,
things
you
easier,
shouldn't
right?
use the script outline from ChatGPT.
Why not?
Like, you can use it, but it shouldn't be your script. Like, it can make the process so much quicker and cut a lot of the fat out.
So,
What do you add then? Like, it is as offensive as a question as that is. Why do you feel like ChatGPT currently doesn't do what you want it to do?
Well, that's not necessarily what I'm trying to say, because it can do what I want it to do. But it also, if everyone used ChatGPT to write their scripts or to create their articles, everything would sound the exact same.
no.
I just...
If you ask ChatGPT, if you and I, both of us, ask ChatGPT to create a script outline for a documentary on tigers, it is going to give me a different script outline and you a different script outline.
Okay, but here's the interesting thing. Because I would argue that you're both correct. And I would argue that is that it would give you two substantively different documentaries, but I would also argue that the format would be very similar. And I think that the amazing thing about, the important thing about tools like ChatGPT is that you have to remember that they are AI agents, which means that they are effectively school children who've been taught by rote a particular way of doing things hundreds and thousands of times by a very strict teacher. Which means that, sure, yours might talk about Bengal tigers while Richard's might talk about tigers that go on cereal boxes. However, they will probably all give you a format that has paragraph point, paragraph point, paragraph point summary.
Yes.
And I think that that's a very... And whilst you can say, hey, please give me it in this format, I think it's so important to understand the context of what it's actually giving you. And that doesn't necessarily mean the nuts and bolts of, this one is going over there. I think that means understanding how you actually, how ChatGPT arrived on your desk, so that you can use it with awareness of what it's actually giving you, maybe.
The thing with ChatGPT, well, it's probably already been looked at like this, but I imagine it's very similar to how people look at Wikipedia.
Okay.
Like, you can ask it something, but you should fact check that.
Okay. So here's where I would argue. If you look at things like there's the name of a benchmark which asks language models like ChatGPT against a wide variety of relatively difficult topics, for example, logic, law, medicine. And overall, I think the highest mark I've seen for it is about 89%, right? Which means that it gets the right answer at 89% in difficult topics. That's better than the average graduate. If I were getting 89% on an exam, I would be very happy with myself.
Can I just point out you get like 85?
I know, but I don't get 89. No, you're very right.
But also, machine accuracy and human accuracy are very different things.
Yes.
Because machine accuracy is just an algorithm
Yeah.
that we have designed and that it works on. But
And
human
it's not gonna
accuracy...
make silly
Exactly.
mistakes. It's not going to
Exactly.
misread a quote, or it's going to misunderstand
Exactly.
something it finds in a
Exactly.
paper. It's just going to be like, oh, I see that. That's what that is. Boom, here you go.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. And human accuracy is very different in that sense, because there are a lot more factors that go into human accuracy.
Well, I suppose something AIs don't do, which we would do, is interpret how we interpreting something that's said on like a textbook.
Yes, which is why I think general AI is such a difficult concept. How far do you think we are from general AI?
So I would ask you, what is general AI? Both for me, for you, and for everyone.
And for me.
General AI is basically intelligence encapsulated in one system. The way that, for this purpose at least, the way that our brains holistically work.
So when you say general AI, are you referring to true AI, or are they two separate things?
Is true AI the same as general AI? Because general AI is basically an AI that can do mathematics calculations while also being able to clean the room, while also being able to, put a robot on Mars. Something that a human is totally capable of doing, along with some emotional aspects. Basically, an artificial human with all its with all their wires and their grey matter is reproduced is probably general AI.
I would argue that the reason that ChatGPT is and all of its brothers and sisters, I would argue the reason that it is so exciting at the moment is because it represents that general AI.
Do you think ChatGPT is general
I would
AI
argue
in many ways?
that for most tasks, by which I mean, the average person going to their job at work in an office, say, I think that if you had a human who was interfacing with the world and then returning to ChatGPT to say, I am a human at work, it's currently 10:30 and I have a meeting at 10:45 with this person who is in this role to discuss this, I would argue that ChatGPT is probably going to do a good job, almost always, at telling you what you should do next. And I think if you take that as a metric for general AI, it's kind of there. It's very, very limited, but it's also kind of there.
But would you say, I think general AI is also the AI that passes the Turing test? If I'm not
What
sure.
is the Turing test for those who don't know?
The Turing test is a test that validates, or that basically, if you place a machine and a human in the same room, and an examiner in a different room, and if the examiner is unable to say the system that they're talking to is human or machine, then the machine passes the Turing test, basically.
Do you think we're not there for text conversations?
I would say we are,
I
because
was about to
sometimes
say, surely we're either there or incredibly close to it. Like, surely you've seen like Snapchat's AI, like, and how creepy that is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have
Mhm.
Snapchat on my phone, so I can't pull it up, but I've seen and heard things about this Snapchat AI, and it's
What is a Snapchat AI?
so it's this AI by Snapchat, and I could be totally wrong about this because I haven't used it myself, and I'm just going off secondhand
Mhm.
information I've heard. Basically, it's like an AI on on Snapchat, the platform Snapchat, and you can just talk to it, like
Talk to it
full blown conversations with it, and
like in text, or
yeah,
oh, okay,
like
so something like
what
ChatGPT
I've
or
seen,
Bard.
and it's
Okay.
almost frightening how like well it responds to things. Like, I think it's quite it's incredible to see, but also incredibly scary to look at, because like imagine just being a person who's chronically online and you want to talk to someone constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your AI.
Exactly. And that is again a very interesting point, since there are so many chatbots uh, on the app stores that can actually be a friend,
Yes.
an online friend to you. And while it may have its own benefits, I don't think we can overlook how incredibly isolating that can make a person.
Yeah. Like we already
Especially,
live in
yeah.
a very isolated world as it is. Even though
Exactly.
we've never been so connected, I would argue that people are more isolated than ever. And the fact that there's AI there too. I don't know what it's called, but there is like it's like a chat AI, but it's a chat AI that has like millions and millions of different like fictional characters and celebrities. And I know people who's used it, and like they will talk to like an anime character. So let's say Deku from My Hero, and it would be like the actual character. Or they'll talk to someone like Tom Holland, and then all of a sudden they're dating Tom Holland on an AI program.
Exactly.
You know?
And that brings you to the that brings us to the movie Her. I think Joaquin Phoenix. Was it a series? Was it a movie? And there, Joaquin Phoenix was dating an AI that was on his phone, and and then he finds out he was not the only one who was dating this AI. Apparently, a million different people were dating this AI as well,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes to him as a shock. And it just it was supposed to be a dystopian sort of a thing, but I don't think we are too far away from that.
Mm.
I think there are, if you look up on the internet, I'm sure we can still find people who are living that, who have an AI partner, or sort of think that they have an AI partner.
I think it's incredibly easy, especially for vulnerable people, to fall into that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was watching a talk from, I can't remember his name. He was one of the senior developers, I think, at Google, or Google's AI. He was a lecturer at Stanford, I believe, or professor at Stanford, who is very connected with industry. And often what he does recently is to form small teams of 3 to 5 very skillful AI engineers to make prototypes for AI systems, following ideas that he's received from talking with various people. So one that he's made that's kind of gone the whole way through is using AI to improve the steering on ships, and he finds that you can have 10% fuel savings. But he also said that a vast amount of the projects that get proposed get put in the bin as soon as they possibly can because of ethics. And I think that things like Snapchat's AI are kind of on the edge. Things like virtual girlfriends or virtual boyfriends, I think are, for me at least, beyond the edge. But the question is, and I don't really want to get too political, but at what point does a product that people are willing to buy, become a danger to society? And like the topic of safety in AI is very nuanced because of different ways that things can go wrong.
Exactly. But also, it also depends from person to person, right? So when you create something like ChatGPT or one of these AI chatbots, you cannot really define, or it takes away from the purpose of it being a holistic AI when you say, oh, you cannot be a virtual partner for somebody. Because me treating ChatGPT as my partner is my decision. And if I go on ChatGPT today and say, you act like my partner, you are my partner now, and respond to me the way my partner would respond to me, and I feed it a bunch of traits. I say you are sensitive, you're sweet, you are this and that, it's going to respond to me that way. And it's very easy to be addicted to something like that for a lonely person who is looking for love in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you differentiate, or how do you enforce that a chatbot or an AI model is not going to be something like that? How do you say it? Okay, so this is where we draw the line. This is where the protocols come in.
Quite simple. I don't think you can.
Exactly.
We've already proven or otherwise accepted that you cannot you cannot detect AI generated text in contrast to human text. It cannot differentiate the two. We're getting to a point where, due to open source language models and jailbreaking of language models, I, as an individual at home with a somewhat powerful computer, can have my own chat agent. So, under that environment, there's nothing stopping me as an individual from firstly making something for myself or making things for other people. And at that point, you've got a capitalist system wherein that's rewarded or penalized as per demand. So I don't think that it's reasonable to say how do we stop it, how do we prevent it, how do we capture it. I think it becomes like any other illicit good, which maybe is a little bit 1982ish or 19 whatever that book is.
1984.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe it becomes a little bit 1984ish, where you have to be careful not to, be too thought police-esque.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in a lot of ways you have to rely on the general good of humanity. Like as much as we talk about negative chat agents, what for example, if every single child could have their own teacher who knew maths, physics, chemistry, arts, humanities to graduate level, and every single student in every country with access to a computer suddenly had a teacher devoted to just them. Alternatively, what if in a nursing home, or what if for say mental health watches, you had AI agents who were more compassionate, less tired, less frustrated than people on the telephone who are trying to help but who are overworked. And what if these AI agents are actually better at caring than real people are?
But how would you? But this is going to put so many people out of work. This is going to put so many teachers and healthcare workers out of work. How would you justify that?
And also, I feel like you would lose the personal touch of that. It's just all becoming very mechanical.
Very mechanical and very machiney.
Especially with teaching and caring for people. I feel like an AI, although could do that, I don't think it would be a valued experience for the person it's doing it for.
Exactly, because teachers play a very important role in a kid's life.
I wouldn't think of school the same way if I was taught by a computer. If it wasn't for my teachers, like it would be incredibly weird to me for a computer to be like. And also, how would an AI manage somebody with learning difficulties or specifically?
No,
Well,
I think
so that's-
it could,
that's-
yeah, it
that's
could
pardon me.
very
That's
easily
the thing.
manage people with learning difficulties, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would actually work better than a human teacher for people with learning difficulties, because you can easily just put in some parameters to be able to do that. That's the good thing about AI. But I think the compassion, no matter what, would still be missing.
Like it would always be a dry mechanical thing.
It could pretend.
Yeah, it could.
For
pretend,
example,
but
it could
I don't-
pretend.
But I think much as we can't, you get.
It doesn't really care
Like
about
you get the
yeah.
uncanny valley. I imagine you would get the same thing through the AI. You would know the emotions it's portraying are fake.
Also, you'd be putting so many people out of work,
That
and
too.
that's actually an industry
And
where people don't really need to go out of work. That is an industry where we need humans, because you want a human child, to have a human experience.
yeah, and you would
yeah.
lose a lot of development as a young person, or learning how to make connections and communicate with people. Like I feel like, especially for kids in vulnerable positions, going to school is their one out sometimes in the day.
So I very much agree with a lot of that. I think there's a series of questions. I think the first is, does my child experience higher quality tuition? Not necessarily a higher quality school experience, but higher quality tuition using an AI agent. And if secondarily you say, okay, well, we're going to be facing massive unemployment, historically everything is trended towards people remaining employed but in different jobs. So it might be that instead of having a teacher at the front, you have, a teacher who is more free to wander around the class and support their children.
Which is true. I think it needs to be the fine line of using AI as a tool, not a replacement.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I keep saying this, that AI could be a very, very good slave, but a very poor master. The moment you start treating AI as the one and only, as a substitute for humans, is when you weaponize it, is when you're paving the way for its domination, is when you start disadvantaging humans instead of, building up their benefits. But the same thing changes. It turns upside down the moment you start using AI as a tool, as something that aids humans, as compared to basically dominating the industry altogether.
I agree entirely. I mean, to steer back to the paper that we introduced, that we introduced right at the beginning. If you look at the jobs that the experts thought would be the least easy to replace, and take this with a pinch of salt, the hardest is the AI researcher. And I think
being the hardest to replace.
Yeah, so this is a bit comical, but the AI researchers think that their job is the hardest to replace. But
interesting. I understand why they might say that, but then as a creative person, I would argue no, the creative side would be the most difficult. But then I'm also seeing it as it is slowly taking over. So and surely if the AI can write itself, why do you need an AI researcher?
Well, so that's the thing, is I agree. And I think that Relina's answer is exactly the one, in that it's a great slave and a terrible master, potentially. If we look at the moment, the most driving limitations of AI, across the board, it's the ability to, with a very limited amount of data, to think of novel things and justify why those are correct or not correct. So if you were, for example, a director of a business, then how much information, how much precedence can you gather for your unique business in your unique location with your unique everything else? And how can you use that small amount of information to make a very important decision? And I think the same sort of trend goes for things like researchers, not necessarily AI researchers, but anyone who's making work wherein they have to make strategic decisions and directions with limited information. I would argue AI does not have a solution to that yet. It might get there, but I mean, and you could argue that's quite similar to the creative direction in that what is a book if not a strategic direction? But there's also an awful lot of books out there with a similar overarching structure, and it kind of knows how to write words, and so it just about puts things together. But again, and this might be something that'll be improved very soon. It cannot write long books because it doesn't have the attention. Quite simply, it can't.
Well, the AI doesn't have the attention.
Correct. Yeah.
Sorry, can you explain what you mean by the AI doesn't have the attention?
Absolutely.
To write a book? Is it a TikTok baby?
Honestly, yeah, a little bit.
Oh my god.
So
that is a great analogy to use here.
Yeah.
It's a TikTok baby.
So I think that the keyword attention is one of the most important keywords, if not the most important keyword in AI, where attention is the ability to disregard some information and to remember some other information, and to use that remembered information in the right manner at the right time. So when it comes to writing a book, say you were writing Harry Potter, I would expect an AI would write really good sentences. It would be the most decorative, you'd have the best image in your mind, but then suddenly half of your cast would teleport across the entire country because it effectively forgot that they were there. Or they might suddenly change hair colour.
So what you're saying is the AI would do a Game of Thrones?
Yes, but
all
worse.
All of a sudden, you're
controversial
you're
opinion,
across,
Richard.
Oh, that's not controversial.
All of a
no.
sudden, you're across the wall, and one character is able to run from way away from the wall and get to the other wall, and Daenerys, who's on like all the other way, is able to all of a sudden appear with their dragons.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, well, so what you're telling me is that season 7 of Game of Thrones was actually written by AI?
It might as well have been, but that's a hot take. And interestingly, I think that's why it's very difficult to look at things like the writers' strike in America that's currently going on, and not somewhat favour the writers.
I feel like you can only favour the writers in that situation.
It's a difficult game because I'm a bit of an industrialist in that I tend to favour if capitalism is driving towards a smarter, cheaper, more effective solution, then you shouldn't hold it back. But you have to make sure that smarter, cheaper solution is actually smarter and is actually better in the long run.
But couldn't you argue that the thing that really makes us humans is the fact that we can do creative things like that?
No.
I feel like I feel like it depends on the kind of person you are and what you deem as making you human. But tell me if any other species that we know of that one makes music, makes film, makes art, all of those things.
No, but our definition of art and music and all of those things, it doesn't have to be the same as those definitions for, I don't know, elephants, dolphins, intelligent creatures,
you're
right?
correct in saying that, but also it's the thing of AI will just make everything. As I said, it should be used as a tool, not be the thing to do it all. Because imagine,
I agree.
You wouldn't get stories like, just because I like it, Star Wars, from an AI. Like it could read all of the Harry Potter books and then rewrite the Harry Potter series, but it would never be quite as right, and it will have some weird things.
Okay, so this is where we have the incredibly hot take that's about to arrive from my mouth.
Oh my god, is it going to get you cancelled?
Yes, it will.
Are you sure you want to say it then?
I will, yeah.
Will I be cutting this?
Yeah, you might be. AI would... a writer would deliver episodes 4, 5, and 6 from Star Wars, and then a writer might deliver episodes 1, 2, and 3, but then an AI would definitely deliver episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, that's not controversial. That's just fact.
Okay, no, you have to explain this to me. What do you mean when you say that?
Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9 are questionable.
Oh. So basically season 8 of Game of Thrones. Okay.
Yeah, but the reason why I say that more so is because they're also very formulaic. They're a return to form.
Some people would say otherwise. People would say that episode 8 is the most un-Star Wars Star Wars.
I'm an uninformed bystander. No,
I have no idea what they're on about.
This is now the Star Wars
I was with them. I was with them when we were talking AI. Now it's just a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah.
I do it to everything I touch.
I think an AI would, in a bubble, detect the trends of what was successful and unsuccessful from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and say, right, excellent, let's do that again. But it would just slightly miss the mark.
An AI wouldn't be able to. The thing that comes so, the thing with writing, right? And it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a writer, you're always going to be putting some form of your lived experience within your own writing.
Yes.
And an AI just can't do that. I'm sure you can be like, watch all this, process all of this, and it can copy, but it won't be able to do it.
I agree. And I think that one of the biggest things in the future for conversational AI, so things like ChatGPT, is having another layer of self-reflection, and that is beginning to be implemented. But its ability to read a piece of prose and think, what do I, as an AI, think about what I've just read? And importantly, and actually they're finding massive increases in the performance of these AI by having them, for example, if you give it a multiple choice question, if you say, what is the answer, A, B, C, or D? And it will get the answer wrong much more often if you just take A, B, C, or D. If you ask the agent to say, explain to me which of the answers A, B, C, or D makes the most sense, and then tell me what your final answer is, its accuracy will go up.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's very interesting, because one would assume it is the exact opposite.
Why do you think that what I've just said is true?
Because, again, I mean, your self-reflection layer, right? That makes so much sense, because now you're introducing another level of intelligence very close to what we face, and where you're forcing the AI to evaluate itself, much like a kid, right? Who is given a few questions. I mean, this is how my mother taught me to prepare before my exams, where I was asked to create my own questions from text and answer them without looking at my text, and then to self-evaluate and mark myself. So that is essentially what the AI is doing, and which gives it, basically it brings and it merges the two aspects of AI, which is answering and evaluating. And it's just doing all of it together. And therefore, it is giving you the better answer. But I think intuitively we would think that it's probably going to have a higher probability of getting the answer right if it is a multiple choice question. But since it is so easy to get one of A, B, C, or D right? But again, I mean, that is where it is counterintuitive, and that is where I think it resembles human intelligence, or it will resemble human intelligence much more closely when it becomes a lot more subjective than objective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what I'd kind of say further to that is that it's the understanding of how it works. In that what you've done is you've written your answers, then you've self-evaluated them to see, does this make sense?
Exactly.
What ChatGPT does, and what these large language models do, is they work word by word. So what they do not have a big mess in their head that they want to try and untangle into words, which I think is kind of a description for how humans work.
Mm-hmm.
They purely work word by word by word by word.
Mm-hmm.
So they run once, they spit out a word. They run again, they spit out the next word. They run again, they spit out the next word.
Yeah.
And that's why I think as users, it's so interesting to remember how they functionally work,
Mm-hmm.
so that we effectively consider their needs. It's like saying that the slave works better when you don't whip it 20 times a day. You know.
Yeah. But this sleeve would actually work regardless.
Oh, it doesn't care if you whip it.
Yeah.
It doesn't care in the slightest. Like,
well, watch what you're saying. If Skynet comes for you, to be on like first list visas.
oh, I mean, yeah. Fortunately, I suppose. But a lot of the ways that AI comprehend languages and sentences, and this might be slightly different in things like ChatGPT, but only slightly, is that they turn the sentences into numbers. And effectively what they'll do is...
Numbers or tokens?
Tokens, which are tokens into embeddings which are numbers.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay, explain to me all the differences of those things you've just said.
That's basically just NLP jargon, basically.
Yeah, it's just jargon.
It's just jargon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, basically numbers. The final result of that is just numbers, because everything at the end is just numbers.
Okay. Well, my question would be, sorry for interrupting.
No.
Surely, if obviously we as humans are innately flawed, so surely everything we make would be innately flawed.
I mean, there's a very funny or slightly concerning topic of dataset poisoning that I'd like to discuss in a minute.
Oh, okay.
But to kind of rewind to what I was almost saying, is that when Richard asks ChatGPT a question, Richard will say, for example, podcast names. And what ChatGPT...
Thank you, ChatGPT, for the podcast name.
Yes.
Thank you.
And what it will do is it will say, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to intuit what the actual command is. If I were, or if somebody else were to ask ChatGPT the same question, then they might say, excuse me, ChatGPT, I was hoping you could tell me perhaps 10 to 20-ish names of AI podcasts that I could do with my friends in the next year or two. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. See you for now. And I'll tell you...
Sorry. I've interrupted once again. When you were saying thank you very much, talk to you later, it just reminds me to the fact that I always, without fail, whenever Google does anything to me, like the voice bot, I will go, thank you, Google.
Absolutely. You have to be kind to your AI models, to your chat GPTs, to your chatbots, so that when they take over the world, you are safe. You're on the keep list.
And this is why Relena's staying, because my next sentence is the difference for the AI between what Richard would put and what I would put is the same. It drops all of the words it doesn't care about, because it doesn't give attention. I'm using the key word that it doesn't give attention to those words.
Yes. That is actually a thing. It drops all the words that do not add anything to the...
So it just takes out a keyword.
Yes,
Kind of.
it just does the keyword analysis, yes.
Interesting. But how does it know what the keywords are?
Well, so that it has a and this is where we get a bit beautifully technical. It has a graph system wherein, by reading all of the things that have been published, more or less, it learns how words relate to one another. So dog relates to cat might relate to food. But it doesn't necessarily. But food doesn't necessarily relate to car.
Yes.
And so what that slowly ends up with as you read millions and millions, and in this case I think there's trillions of tokens, which a token is basically a word, trillions of tokens in the data sets that have been used to train ChatGPT and similar tools. And effectively it learns what's the next likely word after I went to walk. Well, it's probably my. It could be my, it could be the. And that's how it slowly learns to speak English. Now, this is where it gets interesting for dataset pollution.
Uh-huh.
So, imagine that you were an AI researcher who is trying to make art in 2035, 12 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
How would you make sure the art that had been generated by tools like Midjourney or DALL-E 2 were not included in your dataset?
I don't know because I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know either, actually. How would you make sure that art created by Midjourney or DALL-E is
So
DALL-E
are
2
you on
is gonna
about
be?
specifically AI art tools now?
Sure, yeah. So what the question?
But go off. I'm
Yeah.
listening.
So this applies to any generative AI agent. So if it makes words, it counts. If it makes art, it counts. If it makes engineered tools, it counts. Everything that is generative counts.
Okay.
If I tell you that we've observed AI systems tend to learn poorer if they are trained from AI generated data,
Mm-hmm.
then therefore, as an AI researcher, I want to exclude data that has been generated by an AI when I'm training mine. But 12 years from now, in 2035, there's no real way to make sure that happens.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because AI would have passed the Turing test. Which
I
is
suppose that's the question to the entire question of when will AI exceed human experience? I suppose it is how close are we to an AI passing that test if they haven't already.
It depends on the question. And I know that is an evasion, and it's also not an evasion. I think that for things like chat, AI is very close. I think that for things like systems engineering, where you need to consider, well, actually, what do my customers want? And how do they want me to get there? Do they want it to be cheap? Do they want it to be expensive?
Mm-hmm.
What are the legal requirements of whatever it is I'm going to make? How am I going to test the system against those requirements? I can't yet work out, or I can't imagine yet, how we're likely to design an AI that could do that. And I think that's one of the key mistakes here, is that some of the things, for the case of Go, the game, the researchers thought in 2016 that they wouldn't be able to solve that game for the 16 years. Happened 6 months later. However, they think that an AI is going to be able to fold random clothes within, say, a year or two. Now, I specialize, as it were, in robotics. I'll tell you for free, that problem is harder than it sounds. AI...
Why is it harder? Tell us, Tom.
Because AI is not very good at touching things. Is the simple thing. Humans and animals are amazing. We have little touch sensors in our fingers. We have fine control over our digits. AI does not have that. It's all a very, very difficult layer of how do I begin approaching this? Yeah.
It's all just calculations, right? Surely. For it to know it's holding something, it's got to calculate it that it's holding it. It can't.
But that's
that, right?
exactly. But that's hard coding it, right? To a point.
I mean, yeah.
But how many things are you going to hard code? How many things are you going to? How are you going to ask? How are you going to program it into the AI or a robot?
Could an AI ever have a synthetic version of another system where it can, without needing
Yes,
that
exactly. That is the
calculation?
only solution, I believe. But that's so incredibly difficult to build.
Like microelectronics, so that they have, say, hundreds of touch receptors per finger. That would require us to make electronics that we're already quite good at making electronics hundreds of times smaller, hundreds of thousands of times cheaper.
So those kind of things wouldn't really come around till, say, like nanotech's a thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also at that point, like, if we were to try to design a clothes folding robot that used fine dexterous motion,
Mm-hmm.
it would cost us, I don't know, millions plus, when you could hire 10 people on decent wages to do it for 10 years instead.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're faced with the question of, is it actually cheaper to not just use a person?
And this is why Tom's on the podcast, because you can ask him a basic question and he'll just give you this.
This is where it's interesting. Is the question of, okay, but how do we actually make it work? And
Would you then say we often take it for granted how incredibly nuanced our own creation is?
oh, massively. Do you mean us as humans?
Us as humans or living creatures. I mean, anything, right?
Yeah. So one of my favorite examples for this is that you, now say this with a pinch of salt, you managed to walk around the house without crashing into anything. You managed to walk.
Yes.
You managed to walk down the street without crashing into anything.
Falling over for me, yeah.
And you've been doing that since you were 4 years old.
Not very successfully, but yeah.
Okay. So
Mostly at least. On a good day.
I don't know, my family
On a
would
good
tell you
day.
otherwise.
right. But if I ask you to do the same, if I ask you just to stand up, turn around 2 times, and sit back down again,
Mm-hmm.
but to close your eyes before you do it, then I guarantee that you will accidentally turn too much or too little. Your balance might be offset. You might fall over entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And we've, as humans, have completely internalized the fact that we just take that for granted. We just do it.
Yeah,
It could be fun. It could be fun to do a quick dive of.
Yeah, this is turning into another 1 hour rant, guys.
Yeah.
Brace yourself.
First podcast like 4 hours long. Tom just like, and if you include this, and all of this, you
So
got.
it could be fun to do a quick. How long does Releena think? How long does Richard think? Different things are away from being done.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So let's go down.
And I'll be interested if anyone is watching this to see what they say to it too.
Absolutely. Angry Birds. So a video game wherein you fire. You do pigs? No, you
fire birds at the pigs. You never played Angry Birds?
I've played a lot of Angry Birds. Ouch! Thank you.
You do enjoy your camp.
How long do you think it is we could design an AI that played Angry Birds as well as a human?
It depends. What are we classifying as playing as well as human? Because I am throwing out that I've seen people play Angry Birds and games in general, and the skill level is quite.
As well as a decent human.
Like what age?
11.
So a child. Can it play Angry Birds? I wouldn't be surprised if it's already done it.
Me neither, actually. I would say it's probably done it already.
That seems like an
AI
incredibly
seems-
simple thing for an AI to do.
Yeah,
Like
AI
what's it got
sounds-
to do? Push back a bird and shoot it in a curve.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mhm. I would say
if it can
If
play
it's-
chess, it can do Angry Birds.
Okay.
yeah. I would say. I mean, chess is a little different from
Yeah, chess
Playing
is a lot
Angry
of
Birds.
mathematics.
because I would probably guess Angry Birds is a lot more randomized. I have never played Angry
No,
Birds,
it's
but
just
I would say
it's a bit like you get your set levels and you just fight.
yeah. But I think that would be a case of reinforcement learning, right? You can just run a reinforcement. You can just make a reinforcement learning agent, and you can just make it work. I don't think it would be incredibly hard to do something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's already done that.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. I think it's harder than we think it would be, because there is a lot of, I would say, pseudo randomness in that you fire a bird in one direction, it bounces off 3 things, and then a piece of timber hits it in a different direction. It's very hard to estimate.
So so the question. So do you have an answer to that?
AI researchers think anywhere from 1 year to 7 years from 2016, which say 2018 to current.
So do you want me to search the answer?
I don't think anyone's actually made one.
Well, I'll ask anyway. Can AI play Angry Birds?
There are quite a few crazy developers out there, Tom. Don't.
Oh no, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance now that people have done this as like a bachelor's.
Okay, so in the course of
Yeah.
research, I don't know who to research it by. If I find out, I'll plug it on the video version of the podcast. They collected over 115,000 screenshots of their AI playing the first 21 levels of the original Angry Birds game. And that was in October 20th, 2019.
Was it any good? Or did it just play things?
I would think it did a decent
At
job.
first, we thought it was a mistake. The paper reports of a lucky outcome with high hopes. Then they tested their AI agents, some human volunteers with varying levels of experience playing Angry Birds. The paper notes that the AI has to compete against human players for whom reasoning and planning in the complex physical 2D world appear to be easy. They compared the grand total of the agents across all 21 levels to those of its human opponents. The results, in 3 out of 4 cases, it lost to humanity.
Okay. So in that paper, could be better, could be worse.
Yeah, but that is also in 2019, so I would say.
So it could be. So this was posted by 2 researchers on arx.org. Archive, yeah.
Popular place for people to put their research pre-print. Okay, next one. This is a difficult one.
Sorry,
Yes.
and it's tricky. One of the paper's authors, so it's written by somebody called Katerina Nikonova, a PhD candidate at Australian National University.
Cool. Ooh, yeah.
Sorry if I
Ekaterina.
butchered your name.
I would say Ekaterina Nikonova.
Yes. And then
I'm not even going to try,
Jacob
Katerina.
Gemrot. I'm assuming they're the people who did that research, at least.
Okay. Now, this is a difficult one because it's been 5 years away from being done for the last 30 years. Lorry driver.
Interesting, because I would go as far to say that AI can probably drive cars now to a reasonable degree. Like, look at Tesla cars.
Mm-hmm.
So, surely, obviously, if it understands that it's driving a much bigger vehicle and it can calculate where it starts and ends, surely I would imagine it could do that.
With a lorry.
Yeah.
But the payload is also going to be very...
As opposed to... I'm going to say it's either done it or extremely close to doing it.
Yes, I think I would concur. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say, again, we're actually doing better than their expectations. So the expectations of the experts was anywhere from this year all the way up to 2047, potentially.
Okay.
So they were very uncertain for difficult self-driving. I mean, self-driving is a topic in itself that you can have an entire career about. I think I've like it self-driving and what we call SLAM.
So according to Google, truck drivers may be replaced by automated technology as early as 2027.
Okay.
Okay, that's not too far away then.
Yeah. So what a lot of people are probably aware of is that self-driving cars are already out on our roads with supervision.
Yeah, you just have to look at a Tesla. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
Most of those, at least if I ever see them online, it's usually somebody's just letting the car drive. And it's incredible how often, like, they don't have accidents, really. Like, I don't think I've ever seen... I think as much as I'm not a big fan of the guy, Elon Musk is like, oh, we patched it out. Like, because apparently it can learn from that mistake and not repeat it, apparently. Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing for me is that self-driving cars make mistakes in a different manner to humans. So the majority of self-driving cars mistakes are often due to misclassification of what they're seeing.
Yes.
So they might observe a thing and
then call it something totally different
Yeah.
and not even as
they might,
an obstacle.
like, for example, they might mistake a truck in front of them as just being something else.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for example, there's I don't want to say famous example of a Tesla more or less driving straight into a piece of highway maintenance that was kind of steering all of the traffic to the right because
They thought it was a car.
it misrecognized, I think, a particular piece of traffic cone or something as a dot, like as a highway dot, and thought it was just clear sailing.
I suppose that's where the mistakes with AI driving would come from, though, because of the fact that I imagine it would need to be updated any time a road is
Well, so
being changed.
that's the thing. That's not acceptable to my mind.
Yeah, it's not.
A self-driving car needs to be able to react to the driver next to it, which means it has to be able to see in real time. And this is the topic that is my speciality, slam. And it's really difficult.
What with your jumping robot?
With my jumping robot.
Insert clip.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. Things like GPS and maps are a really useful side point to that, because they help do everything like approximately where the car is, what the route should go on, but it needs to act in the real world in real time. And so I actually think that these estimates are quite reasonable. I think 2047 is a bit far away. I'd probably say, you know, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's going to be better than a human driver in all circumstances for a very long time.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's wrong to expect that as well.
Yeah.
You know, because there are so many nuances that go into driving. There's so many hazards that can happen.
As a
anytime.
non-driver myself, I think it's not something that can happen very soon. But I think there are people who need an AI to, you know, help them out.
I mean, well, that's
Cough, cough. My mum.
Yeah, I mean that is the joke in the Google self-driving cars in America have clocked up hundreds of thousands of hours of driving or something like that. I might be getting numbers wrong, and they have had fewer accidents or fewer close accidents than the average driver would in that time period. So you could argue they're already better than human in the majority of things. So it's the question of, okay, when do we hand over? How do we hand over? And importantly, who's responsible?
Yes, that is, I think, another very different question, a very different topic.
And also, how
Who is
accessible is
responsible?
AI drivers going to be to the average consumer?
Oh, that I'm sure that is going to be pretty accessible once it is the norm, you know. Because Tesla, you see more and more Tesla cars on the road.
Yeah,
right away.
but you know, most people get a car and they keep that car for 20 odd years. You know, it's
I would argue that self-driving cars is equivalent of having an automatic gearbox.
Yeah.
It used to cost like £500 extra,
but now
£1,000
it's just the
extra.
norm.
But for most people, it's now
It's
pretty
becoming
much
the
the
norm.
norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because I could be totally wrong on this and off touch, and I'm sure there's people who are like, no, manual's the only way. But like, automatic
But
cars,
you're old, Tom.
automatic cars seem to just be able to, you know, do just what a manual car can do, just less having to figure out where the gear goes.
I mean, fun fact, automatic cars are actually robots.
Yes,
of
course they are.
They actually just have a robot inside change the gears for you.
Oh, do they? Yeah. That makes sense, yeah. But
Anyways, the next one, and this can be the final one. Oh, and this will be a difficult one. 5 kilometer race in a city between a bipedal robot, so one with legs, versus a human.
Interesting, because there are robots. I have seen on Instagram that there are robots that can walk and run. Can they run?
No, but I would assume it's quite difficult for a robot to achieve that sort of speed because of the power that it consumes.
Oh, okay. So I thought when you said just the distance would have to run.
Yeah, but I'm assuming this is on batteries.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Or mini fusion reactor, as per.
Mini fusion reactor. A little nuclear bomb inside, you know.
I would guess.
Gets to the end of the race and atom bombs.
Exactly. I remember
The chassis
watching.
got to the end. Sorry.
I remember watching a video of robots trying to play football, and they were incredibly wobbly. This is a proper football tournament that happens between robots, and the best team was the least wobbliest, and they were still very, very wobbly. So I would assume this is going to take us some more time because it consumes a lot of power, and it would need.
It's all very interesting, but just to wrap us up for this episode at least, because gotta save some stuff for the other ones, guys. Come on. I'm sure Tom has plenty of other things to talk about.
I can keep going.
In your two's opinions, and this is just me being dramatic for the sake of the last part of this podcast, do you think AI is going to have a greater impact than, say, something like the atom bomb?
Ooh. Releena. Well, I think...
It depends, because the atom bomb, when you say, do you mean atom bomb or do you mean nuclear power? Because when you say atom bomb, it was a weapon of mass destruction. When you say atom bomb, you're comparing something extremely destructive to a technology that is built with the intention of helping, built with the intention of being a tool. So do you mean an atom bomb or do you mean nuclear energy?
For the sake of my dramaticness, I'm going to stick with the atom bomb. Because the atom bomb, it's a cornerstone of history. It's not.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Like, do you think AI is going to have the same kind of impact?
Negative impact? Negative impact.
Sure, negative impact in this situation, yes.
It depends on how we handle AI in the long run. It is going to get incredibly difficult to enforce ethics as we move along, as AI becomes more and more accessible to common people, as it becomes easier for us to build AI over the future. We do not know where it stops, actually. We do not know what the power can hold. We do not know what it is capable of till we actually build it. Because even during the atom bomb, right? Even when the atom bomb was being built, they did not know what its capability was. They did not know what it was going to do. Like Oppenheimer in Nolan's Oppenheimer famously said, or Einstein famously suggested that they would probably be impacting the entire universe. They'd be probably changing the entire universe as they know it with what they're creating. And they kind of did, in fact. So we do not know till we reach that point. But yeah, I would say if mishandled, if created it is very easy to create a destructive AI that can impact the world as we know it very negatively.
I think I agree and I disagree.
Okay.
I think, as Releena said, you could say that the atom bomb and the threat of mutually assured destruction has ensured moderate peace for 80 years, which is one hell of a baton to beat. I think that for the average person on the street, I think the AI is going to have more of an impact. I think
More of a daily impact.
more of a daily impact.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've never really felt necessarily daily impact from the atom bomb myself. I'm sure there are people who.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think in our world you have slow change and you have fast change. I think that the impact of the atom bomb was to suddenly shock the world, and it permanently changed the upbringing of children subsequent to that in a way that would have been completely different if there was always the threat of another world war every 10 years. Granted, the Cold War, etc. I think that I think you could have a similar conversation. Is the internet, is telecommunications more impactful than the nuclear bomb? And I think the answer is probably yes. It has completely changed the way that humans live with each other. I think that the
always online, dangerous thing.
I think that the AI, the new
Get
AI,
off your phones, guys. Go read a book.
Carry on watching this, then go.
Yes, get off your phones after the podcast.
Go touch grass.
I think the new AI revolution, as you could call it, that we're currently in, has the potential to effectively be Internet Part 2.
Yeah,
Or bigger than the internet,
if I was
then.
to rephrase my question, I suppose a better way of rephrasing it would be, is AI going to have a greater impact than the internet? And in my opinion, probably yes.
Yes.
I think it can have a more noticeable negative impact sooner than the internet.
Oh no, that I think you can agree with. I mean, the internet had a very
Gradual.
Yeah.
Like at first it was like,
we
this
took
is
some
brand
time
new,
to adopt
it's
the
cool.
internet and to adapt to it and to let the negatives of the internet percolate within the society and actually see the repercussions of that, right?
Yeah.
Which AI is going to be, it's going to be so much faster because the world is so much faster.
Yeah.
We'll see the negative changes much
in a world
faster.
of blink and you miss it now. It's like
Exactly.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's only going to get more. That I can guarantee. Life is only going to speed up until something breaks.
Hopefully after us.
Hopefully never. Like.
Hopefully after us. I don't want to be here when it breaks. When the matrix breaks.
I would much rather be on a Bot Talks podcast than a Will We Live to See Tomorrow podcast.
But some people would say that AI is maybe going to be the cause of us not seeing tomorrow. So.
I mean, there's a risk. I
love that for us.
So we leave you at that. There's a risk. We have come to no conclusions. There's a risk AI will take over the world.
But I think overall, to answer the question of will AI overtake human
performances.
There we go. I think that
I think it already has in many ways.
I would say in a lot of ways it already has.
Yeah.
But never in every way.
Never in every way.
Unfortunately, I see most of the challenges being in the ways that we don't want it to. I think that we will always pick strawberries by hand.
And that's where we're going to end up.
Because this will turn into another rant very easily.
Yeah. Any last words?
I've been Tom.
This is Releena.
And it's been Richard.
Bye-bye.